Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Fringe Coverage. This podcast profiles the stories, swings, and stars of the LPGA Tour. Whether you're new to women's golf or a longtime fan, hopefully this podcast helps you develop your own rooting interests in women's professional golf. And today we are joined by professional golf's go-to stats guy, Justin Ray. Justin has spent time working at ESPN, including time as researcher for the Scott Van Pelt Show, and supported their major championship coverage, then moved to be a researcher over at Golf Channel, and now serves as head of content at 21st Club. Justin has an amazing knack for ingesting, digesting, and most importantly, communicating data in a way that engages fans. And by far, my favorite follow on social media within the golf social media space, Justin Ray, welcome to the show. How are you, man?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, guys. Excited to be here.
Well, I said at the outset, we love following you on social media. For those of you out there that aren't, Justin just has an amazing ability to spin some stats, whether they're LPGA, PGA, or just sports takes in general. So, Justin, we have a ton of questions we want to ask you today, but would love to start with a little bit of a journey question here that I'm sure you've answered plenty of times. But can you give fans an idea of your journey, kind of starting with keeping your own Little League stats in Excel and how that somehow made its way into becoming the go-to resource for professional golf stats and analytics?
Yeah, so first of all, just always been a colossal sports fan. I think my earliest memory is watching a Super Bowl with my dad, like the first thing when I'm like 3 or 4 years old. And like you said, like that's the anecdote I always give. Like in Little League, I was the kid who would come home after he pitched in a game and put his stats in dad's computer and in Microsoft Excel. That's how dorky I was with that stuff. But also, I apologize if my voice is a little hoarse. I was busy on the road in Pittsburgh watching my Houston Texans just dominate and maybe end Aaron Rodgers' career up in Pittsburgh. So I'm still a little hoarse from that. But that's also just indicative of just how much I love all around sports. And that's kind of the way I was as a fan growing up. My dad's worked for the PGA of America for forever. He was inducted into the Texas Golf Hall of Fame last year in an administrative capacity. So golf's always been part of my family and part of my life, but I didn't really take it that seriously growing up in terms of playing. I was way more into baseball. And I was more of a fan of other sports, but golf has always been part of my life. And so I went to the University of Missouri for college for journalism. And when my goal was like, I'm going to be Dan Patrick, I'm going to be Stuart Scott. And then you get there and there's 300 other dudes who want to do the exact same thing. So you're like, okay, maybe I need to recalibrate here a little bit. But my eye was always still working in sports media. And I've found out about something called the research department at ESPN, which wasn't anything I'd ever really thought of before. Interviewed with them, had an internship in 2007. I was told there's like that year, maybe 15,000 applicants and 2 got it. So yeah, that was kind of where I felt like, okay, maybe I know what I'm talking about. And when I talk to these people about sports, I can kind of, get my foot in the door and show them I can, be beneficial to their shows. So I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with Stump the Schwab.
Favorite game.
So yeah. Howie, rest in peace, great guy. He was the original ESPN researcher. He kind of forged the role in the early days of ESPN, and it grew to the point where, this is 15 years ago now when I was there, but like in the physical building in Bristol, but it grew to, when I was there were 60 studio researchers and like an entire different department of 100 people that was doing, data tracking and stuff. So I'm sure it's evolved immensely since then, but that's kind of where I got my start. I worked in all sports, SportsCenter. You mentioned Scott Van Pelt Show. Absolutely had a blast. I love Scotty. It's the most fun I've ever had at work. But I kind of found a niche in the golf window in the research department. There's 30 people who want to work on baseball tonight. There are 40 people who want to work on NFL Live. Golf's it was a little easier for me to squeeze into. There's 2 or 3 guys who were kind of the golf standard there. And I thought, this is probably a place where I could make my mark. And I loved it too, and was growing more and more in love with watching and consuming and generating content around the sport. So I was able to cover my first major at ESPN at the US Open at Pebble Beach when I was 24. So I was out at, I was working on a show post game at Pebble Beach, and Chris Berman was the host. It was crazy. Like to think of, the what I was doing at that young and having that kind of unbelievable opportunity. I'm so grateful for it. And in that, I started covering. I worked on the majors. I had a golf stats column on ESPN.com. I had no business having that kind of platform at that age. But I was able to kind of start growing a social media following from that. Just as a vehicle, I didn't really know what I was doing, but it was in the infancy of Twitter, and it was kind of a vehicle to promote the article. Golf Channel figured out who I was after a little while. They came and recruited me in 2014, joined their production team, was at all the majors, worked on Golf Central every night, got to travel all over the place, sit and talk golf with Brandel and, Rich Lerner and Mark Rolfing and Noda Begay, and made great friends there. And that was an awesome gig. 1 year at the Ryder Cup I think this was 2016, some British guys came in and talked to us about how they were working stats with the European Ryder Cup team. And I really thought this is kind of intriguing. This might be like an evolution in what I could do someday. And it was the CEO of our company, 21st Group, Blake Wooster, who was there. And he was explaining what they were doing for them. And that was kind of a spinoff from what they've been doing in international soccer for years and years. So that relationship, there's mutual respect on both sides. That kind of grew. And then early in 2019, we started a dialogue about, hey, maybe this is something, how can we grow 21st Group's media side of the business? How can we, they were kind of helping out Sky Sports a little bit, but, they were looking at a deal with the USGA. They wanted to get in with different, broadcasting entities and equipment companies. And it was a natural fit. So I'm super thankful for the time I had. I'm sorry, this is such a long explanation, but
this is exactly what we wanted.
Winding road Yeah, it's been a winding road from working at Foot Locker in Columbia, Missouri, when I wasn't in journalism school, to here. But from there with 21st Group, I've got all kinds of great opportunities, including the work I've been able to do with the KPMG Performance Insights with the LPGA. The work with the Solheim Cup has been the coolest and most fulfilling thing by far I've ever done in my career. And hopefully there's more on the horizon. Just worked a TGL match last night. We're integral in their production. That's been a fun challenge. It's a good time to be me. That's for sure. I'm really happy with where I'm at, and I'm happy that I can maybe spread the gospel a little bit of the women's game, because we need more guys like you, who are speaking up for it and interested in it and love it, because it's an amazing tour with great athletes.
Amen to that, huh, Tom?
Absolutely. Would you say that you mentioned that the European Ryder Cup team reached out to you? Were they more receptive to statistics back, whatever that was 10 years ago or so?
Yeah, I should clarify. Like, it was 21st Group was working for, I think it was Darren Clark at the time, the European Ryder Cup captain. So yeah, maybe they had they were more keen to the metrics and stuff early on, I guess. I mean, I think the United States they've had analytical stuff on that Ryder Cup side for a while, but I'm not sure how deep it was, or how integral it was in the planning process early at that point, back a decade ago now. But they were working for them, and they came in and kind of explained what they were doing to Golf Channel. Like, I was sitting there just as part of the production team. I'm the researcher for the show. I'm looking up the last time the USA swept the first session, and and the Ryder Cup, and in between stuff, they come in and talk to us for 15 minutes. But I would say maybe they probably had a little bit of an early jump on really tying analytics and strategy into what they did on the course of the Ryder Cup.
So we're going to get to the Solheim Cup, because I think that's as you alluded to, it seems like the coolest thing you've ever done from our perspective.
It is for me. Yeah.
I can't wait to ask for a couple of stories, and some of which we've heard along the way that we might ask you to retell. But before we get there, as we look specifically at the LPGA, early on in this podcast, I went on a rant, Justin, and probably one that you can commiserate with, about stats or the lack thereof with the LPGA. Would love to hear you talk about, starting from when you started focusing on and any of your time on the LPGA, what the evolution of stats looks like, starting from what the current status of stats was when you first got in to where it is now, and kind of maybe some things that surprised you along the way, and then maybe on the back end, kind of what's still fertile ground for growing that in current day.
I will say that since I started my career, they've come an astronomical way from where the distance from where they were 15 years ago or so. There's obviously still a long way to go, but I think the biggest jump came in 2021 when my company and the unbelievable generosity and support of KPMG to start the Performance Insights program, where we were able to get the new generation of strokes gained statistics as integrated into part of the LPGA. Because as of the 2020 season, I mean, that's not that long ago when we were, watching Lim Kim in a mask win the champions at the U.S. Women's Open, and was in December. That's not that long ago, but they didn't have any, broken down even strokes gained total wasn't part of what they did. So it was really, I mean, that was super fulfilling to be able to completely dive in. And like for 5 years, I generated recaps and numbers and stuff for every single round of the LPGA Tour. So it really allowed me to really dive into it. But the evolution there was significant. It was the biggest jump that they'd ever made in terms of having shot by shot detailed information where they could tell you, oh, Megan Kang is incredible from 125 to 150 yards with her irons. If she putts decent, she might win the tournament this week. We couldn't tell you any of that stuff, 5 years.
What did stats look like prior to that? Like how were they
fairways
collecting?
And greens.
Fairways and greens.
Fairways and greens, putts per round.
And this like caddy self-reported stuff?
No, I mean they have their own like integrated stat system, but it wasn't anything that was like shot by shot with lasers or anything like the PGA Tour is able to implement with the ShotLink program, which is an incredibly expensive program to run even to this day. But still, to think that they only had, they had basically what was the equivalent of the same thing they had in 1970 in 2020 is crazy. So the generosity and the support of KPMG was really important in terms of getting this thing rolling and getting detailed statistics where for the LPGA and getting kind of that next generation of storytelling to be able to make that evolve.
And who are those? There may be some obvious and less obvious answers here. Who do those stats stand to benefit? We think about players, broadcasts. What are all the different applications you're seeing with this growth in statistics?
I think the first thing you see is just players able to use detailed information about their play and take it and make improvements. I mean, if you're a player in, let's say it's Stacey Lewis in her prime, not that long ago, a decade ago or so, when she's at the top of the world ranking, she doesn't have information on, unless she's tracking it herself, she doesn't have information on how good she is relative to the field with her irons or, with, proximity on bunker shots or, hey, I'm really good putting 4 to 8 feet, but 10 to 15 feet, I'm the bottom 15% of tour. I'm just making these numbers up, but like that, none of that information was possible. So what coaches can do, caddies can do, players can do, supports teams can do, they can look at those numbers and find ways to improve your game in a really detailed, succinct way. And a lot of times, there are little facets of a player's game where you improve on this, it improves you by half a shot a tournament. That doesn't sound like that much, but that might be the difference between keeping your card and losing it, or making it to the Tour Championship and not making it, or making a Solheim Cup team and not making it. There's all kinds of ways that coaches can and players can tie that in to make really specific improvements in their play. And from a broadcasting standpoint, it's a total game changer. I mean, LPGA broadcast crews I give them so much credit because for so long they've had to work with fewer cameras, fewer staff, because I've worked on everything. I've worked on everything from the Masters to, first round of an LPGA event overseas, like everything in between. And what they're able to do with limited info is really kind of breathtaking, like in terms of the comparison to the other, more resourced events on the men's side. And to be able to provide really detailed analytics and statistics for those folks to be able to tell super specific stories and explain, okay, this is why Gino Titicun is amazing. This is why Lexi Thompson's able to contend this week when she hasn't been playing a whole lot. Minjee Lee is actually a much better putter than you think. Like all these different things that you can extrapolate from those detailed statistics, it really benefits them as well. So, and in turn, the fans benefit too, right? I mean, you can,
for sure,
whether it's you want to make a wager on a player because of a trend you see, or you're a Japanese golf fan and you want to know how Miyu Yamashita's play is going to translate next season, right? So it just benefits everybody across the board. And if we're able to not just give more information, but the right and best information possible, that's key to telling the better stories.
I would imagine that once the statistics really start taking off, that to something you mentioned, the sports betting will probably really help bolster the LPGA numbers, because that seems to be, any sports broadcast you watch now, you see the line, you have to answer to my kid, like, hey dad, what does, Pistons +3 mean? I go, okay, well, let me explain this part to you. I don't really want to explain that to him just yet, but once the gambling world really gets its hold on the LPGA, I would imagine that the league will probably thrive from that.
There'll be a boom there for sure, like there has been with viewership and activity with a lot of other sports that aren't at the top of the food chain, aren't your NFL, college football, top of the U.S. sports food chain. Yeah, they'll definitely benefit. And look, any attention and more attention we can drive towards these players in this tour and helping it grow and expand. The product's fantastic. You just you buy in a little bit and you experience it. You'll be hooked, just like me, and I know you guys are.
Well, we mentioned we had Big Randy from No Laying Up on just this past week.
My man.
Dude's the best. For those of you that haven't listened to last week, Randy absolutely cooked on everything from LPGA to his newfound love of rollerblading and how he's now 7'2" while standing on rollerblades.
That would be a terrifying sight.
Right? Imagine being in Denver and
the man
that
is
goes
legit.
by.
He's legit a giant. When you see him, I'm a big dude. I'm like 6'2", 6'3", and he towers over me. So yeah, it's the big moniker it's warranted, folks. And on rollerblades, I can only that's a nightmare.
I feel like he needs to call air traffic control and let people know he's going out. Like you need to make sure
he's
that
checking bridge heights,
For sure.
Man.
While we had him on, this exact topic came up I'd asked him a question about resources that were being pumped into the LPGA and just the evolution of that. And he asked the question, he says, hey, I don't want to put you on the spot here, but I want to challenge you on something. He said, why is Nelly Korda good? He said, don't worry, I'm not trying to put you in a spot here. I'm going somewhere with this. And I said, well, she's one of the longest drivers on tours. And he's like, how do you know that? And I said, well, and he's like, don't worry, you don't have to keep going here. My point here is you would not struggle with your answer of why Scotty Scheffler is the best on tour. And he was saying, until we have ShotLink, until we have data that we feel confident in delivering, we're going to be at a disadvantage in how we talk about the sport. And if, as you said, the product is good, the women playing golf are amazing. It's why I watch it. Yes, broadcast can be enhanced, and it sounds like they're going to with some of the recent announcements from the commissioner's office. But anyone, if you're Big Randy or one of us, people who probably have a more vested interest in the LPGA, if we have trouble explaining statistics, imagine how hard it is for the general sports fan to try to come in and learn about this tour. We got to make it easier on that front. So I think that those stats and analytics on their own are just that, stats and analytics. What you do with them, I think, is what makes fans like us find a way to be able to talk and engage with the sport in a really meaningful way. I want to jump into Solheim Cup here, and to do that, you've already kind of referenced some of the work your company has done in earlier years with Ryder Cup, but let's jump straight into you specifically having a role with the U.S. Solheim Cup team. Take us to the start of that conversation, what it was purported to be, and did it end up being that or something far more or less involved than you were expecting?
Yeah, so the root of it comes again with the KPMG Performance Insights. Obviously, Stacey Lewis has had KPMG on her hat for forever. I think I feel like every photo in her career, there's a KPMG logo on that hat. But through our ties with them, we're able to build a relationship with Stacey and with the U.S. Solheim Cup team. And they chose us, 21st Group, and the KPMG Performance Insights as that kind of their statistical guidance, because they felt like they didn't have the support that the men did. Like you always heard about analytics and numbers and strategy and stuff and the alternate shot specifically, but overall for the Ryder Cup or the President's Cup. And Stacey wanted that kind of advantage, for her captaincy. So I dove in full bore, it's not just me. There's a team. I'm the face of it, but there's a team behind the scenes as well. I have a brilliant colleague named Luke Carter, who's tremendous with coding and things that I can't wrap my brain around. Like I said, journalism school, not computer science. No chance. I can mess around with an Excel file. That's about as detailed as I get. But his work and then a lot of a big team of others who were there tracking data as well. But I'll take you back to the origin of it. 2023 Founders Cup. I fly. So originally I meet Stacey and Angela Stanford late in 2022, explain to them, I wanted it to be, very familiar, very comfortable. So started to build that relationship and then had a lot of Zoom meetings and, talks about what we could do. built that up. And then eventually at the Founders Cup in 2023 was the first time I flew in and got to go present to the players. So had a presentation ready to go. There's probably about 30 players in the room. Nelly Korda, Daniel Kang, everybody you could think of that could potentially be part of the U.S. team later that year. We're all there, and I got to give a presentation on, all right, this is who we are, and this is what we did for the Ryder Cup. Here's an example of, here's your probability of winning a match based on who you're paired with. And then I remember Jessica Korda was like, what's the number right beneath it? And I was like, that's if one player tees off on odds and evens and we flip it. So they were like, oh, okay. Like they're that detailed in terms of, how the strategy and planning goes. I think we ran 20,000 simulations of every potential pairing that you could think of, had it all mapped out, explained to them what we could do. The buy-in was pretty great immediately. Allison Corpuz came up to me. This is a few months before she won the U.S. Women's Open. And I felt so old because she said, I grew up following you on social media.
Oh, geez.
And I was like, oh, dagger. Like, that's awesome. Thank you. But like, oh, I'm an old man. But no, it was really cool. Like Allie Ewing, I remember sitting there. She was asking me questions for like 20 minutes. And they were all really, really just, kind and, were really receptive and open to the
I imagine they all wanted your card individually as well.
There was a little bit of that too. Yeah, for sure. So
slide into his DMs.
Yeah. So grew into being part of the team, get to Spain in 2023. Unbelievable experience there. My goal too, like I didn't want to just be like a dork in the corner with a sheet of, here you go, Captain. Here's what I think. Like,
I mean, I think that's what probably a lot of people imagine. Yeah.
These are all type A personality, like independent contractor professionals who want to be the best they can be. Like you need to kind of step it up to their, personality. So I made it a point, like I was riding around with Vice Captain Stanford on a golf cart all week. I'm talking to caddies. I'm building relationships. I want buy-in from everybody. Like, the numbers guys, we're on the side. We're part of the team, right? Stacey had me talk to the team leading up to the week a couple different times about some strategies. We actually had we were tracking specific shot data in the practice rounds. Basically, obviously you take all that information with a giant grain of salt. Sure. But what we're able to see was like, so Lexi Thompson hadn't had a great season that year, but she was hitting the ball fantastic in the couple weeks leading up to it. And she was really great in the practice round days. And we thought we might have Lexi of old ready to go. And basically talking to Stacey, she was like, I'm putting Lexi out first. And everyone was like, you're putting Lexi Thompson out an alternate shot first on road soil. We swept the session 4-0, and it was the first time in U.S. Solheim Cup history that we swept an alternate shot session. So I came back in, I was ready to run through a brick wall. I was so fired up before ball. I came in, I like body tackle hugged Luke, my colleague. I was like, yeah, that's what we do.
We did this. Yeah.
So we were jacked. It had a great impact on how we reviewed in the room. Because wow, this works. Like, let's buy in.
Especially that format. Yeah.
Yeah. And the alternate shot is where the analytics have by far the most impact. So ultimately we tied. If one player doesn't make a hole in one, we probably win the Solheim Cup.
Yeah.
So that was crushing, but it gave us fuel for the next year. Came out, stuck to the plan, had a great strategy going into Robert Trent Jones, and then won the Solheim Cup in 2024. So that's kind of the origin story and the fruits of that. And I talked to Angela Stanford a lot via text and on the phone, and have met her up at some majors recently, and she wants us to be part of the team later this year at Burner Deuce. So let's go win a road one.
Man,
so as part of the team, you win a trophy, right? You get some kind of trophy, medal.
I chugged beer multiple times out of the Solheim Cup, yes. And then actually before the week started, I told the team, my team, like my guys, like I'm driving them around, and the guys tracking data and everything. I told them this, but I also told people on the Solheim Cup team, if I win, I'm getting a tattoo. And I had heard, I'd seen what I think it was Thomas Bjorn got a tattoo when they won in 2018.
That's right.
No knock on Captain Bjorn, but it was kind of rinky dink. I got a half sleeve.
Sick. If you are listening on audio podcast right now, you are missing J Ray just flexing literally to show his arm.
There's no flex there. Come on now. That's no flex. But yeah, no, I wanted to do it big. I mean, that's how much it meant to me. It's not some token thing. Like, this is the biggest thing that, this is like a culmination of like a career, in terms of, I hope I'm going to do a lot more, but in terms of that, I felt a need, like I need to celebrate this appropriately. So go big or go home. And I wanted getting to go after I got it done and showing Stacy and Morgan Pressel as a vice captain and, getting to show everybody was really cool.
Well, since I do have one other Solheim Cup question that's a little bit more stature. But before we do, since we're talking about tattoos and chugging, I think Tom unearthed something that we need some clarity on.
Yeah. Speaking of going big, on September 15th of 24, you posted a tweet which you've since pinned that says, "Just karaoke rapped Hypnotized by Biggie in the U.S. team room. Dreams do come true."
Yeah, Andrea Lee big on that because the song started and the mic wasn't turned on. So after like 6 lines, and then the DJ brought it back. But yes, no, I did karaoke rap Hypnotize in front of the entire U.S. team and all their families.
Is this your jam? Is this your jam of choice? Why Hypnotize?
I just went with that. I'm a 90s rap product, so why not? And maybe I changed one of the lines in the song to "Europe's tied up in the Brooklyn basement." Maybe I did that, and that got a good reply.
Just right off the dome.
Look, it's a sacred covenant what happens in that room, but I did share it. And now every time I talk to Grant Boone on a public format, he brings it up. So because he was there and he karaoke too. He did some other song earlier in the day. So it was a party, man. We had a great time. We celebrated accordingly.
Grant was the very first guest we had on this show before we even knew what we had. Up. Huh. Yeah, we didn't. We'll make sure we'll have Grant back on this year. We'll make sure we ask that. So, an ongoing bit that you probably don't know, Justin, with this show is everything Tom and I do. Our friendship is based off of 90s hip hop and R&B. Everything. So we drop references every show about this. So as soon as Tom said this, we're like, oh my gosh, this is like Justin was made for this show. So you may catch a couple more strays here of hip hop and R&B as we go through.
There's no doubt.
Yeah, we can tell. I think we may be of the same musical references as well. Talk to me a little bit about how stats do inform Solheim Cup decisions, whether it's course fit, pairings, and again, you mentioned multiple formats. Where are stats being utilized the most by the captain and vice captains in general?
So it's most impactful in alternate shot. I mean, just think about the format where what you want to do is you want to put players in the best position to succeed, like give as many opportunities as you can to gain an advantage wherever that may be. Like if you are pairing, let's say you've got a shorter player like Nelly Korda and Allison Corpuz have been an awesome combination for us the last 2 Solheim Cups. Allison's maybe the most accurate driver, man or woman on the planet. I asked her once if she can feel when she's a yard off left or right in her hands. She was like, yeah, kind of. Just because I wanted to throw out like a preposterous, like just a professional.
And then she confirmed it.
Yeah, she was like, I don't know, a yard, but like, yeah, basically just magic, going down the middle over and over. But anyway, so Allison's not as long as Nelly, right? Obviously. And so you don't want to put her in a situation where she's teeing off on a long par 5 when you can gain an advantage through, having Nelly tee off on those holes. So you look at the layout of the holes and strategically where you can gain an advantage. And probability wise, I think it's 65% of the time if you lead at the turn in a Solheim Ryder Cup, NCAA, President's Cup, whatever, if you lead at the halfway point, you win the match. Like it's very important to get out ahead, especially an alternate shot, because there's just the nature of the not so much volatility. And, it's really important to get a lead. So you look at all the different factors where you want to maximize the value of the shots the players are going to hit, putting them in the best position possible. Another principle of that is inherently, what is it? 45% of matches don't get to 18. Don't get to 17, don't get to 16. So you look at that too, and that kind of, you can find the most important shots that are going to be critical from a win probability standpoint going into a match, and you get your players in the best position possible. And it's not only that, it's not just raw, you go with you, and this is what the numbers say. Like there's a whole process of, marrying like personalities, golf ball is always an important thing that you factor in, where, if some player has I remember Lexi had a really different golf ball than everybody else. I think it was a few years ago, and we factored that into the decision making. Fatigue. Stacy was really high on, we don't want anyone playing 5 matches because of the diminishing returns. And that was even when we had full flight Nelly Corda, in terms of coming off of, she was in the midst of a 7-win season. We knew that she would be best with a session of rest before singles. So that was a key factor. So basically it's a giant math problem you're trying to solve. It's a big puzzle where you weigh certain factors and rest this player. And okay, this combination might be better than this one, but we need to rest her. You factor all those things in, and really you're just a sounding board for the captain. And it was so much fun being able to, answer whatever questions possible that come up with Stacy. Stacy might see, or a vice captain might see, hey, this player is really looking really off today. Like, what do the strokes gain numbers say? And she'd, we'd be able to give her that information in real time that led up to Friday in the first session to make those decisions. So it was really hand in glove. Just anything that the captain, vice captains come up with question wise, our goal was, we have the answer. If we don't have it right away, we're going to find the answer. And we want the captain to have not just, here's what this says. We want, okay, here's strategy A. We also have B, C, D, E, F, G, and H. Like, we have a long list of ways that if you prefer this, if this look fits your eye better, here's what the numbers say, here's what the probability is. So it was really just top to bottom, tip to tail, absolute detail, button up. And that was the way we wanted to go about it, to give Captain Lewis and the vice captains every piece of information they could possibly need.
So do the captains come to you before the teams are set and ask you, do you have any advice on who we should take?
It's a 2-season buildup. Like, we would have meetings about, I remember succinctly right before Chevron in 2024. And this was a player that was way off the radar. She was in the 20s or 30s in terms of points, but I was like, it was a meeting with me, Captain Lewis, Vice Captain Stanford, Vice Captain Pressel, and we were sitting at a table at the Chevron Championship, and I was like, we need to keep an eye on this particular player. Like, her ball striking metrics are really good recently. I think she's going to break out and have a big week. It was Lauren Coughlin. And basically her putting went from abysmal the season before, apologies, Lauren, to
she knows
one of the best on the team by the time we got to RTJ. But like, entering the week, I said it, and then she went out and contended, finished in the top 5. I'm like, all right. I hope.
And she won a couple weeks later.
Yeah, she won twice that season, I think, right? And so I remember talking to her and her husband at that party, and I was like, "What did you do to get better putting from 10 to 20 feet? Like, it went from terrible to incredible. Like, no offense." And she was like, "It was like one tempo drill she talked about, and it was just one thing she focused on."
So it was a conscious thing that she changed. Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's another example of how statistics can help dictate maybe decision making. But it was it's a detailed process of, like, we looked at before we went into Spain, strokes gained by grass type, strokes gained by green type. We wanted, we dove into, like, okay, this player has maybe overperforming a little bit this season. We don't think her putting is going to translate to here. I'm just making up scenarios, but we basically wanted every piece of information humanly possible, and we had that at our disposal.
Man, sheesh.
And it was fun. And then in the end, I get to wrap Biggie and chug beer out of a Solheim.
Yeah, I mean, what else do you need out of any experience, really? That should just be a daily.
An incredibly painful tattoo that took 2 days.
Leave the painful part out.
It would be so fun for somebody to give you a problem and go, "Hey, there's no answer to this," and you go, "Well, actually, there is. Here are the numbers that back it up." That must be very rewarding. I mean, as a pedantic guy like me, I would really like to be.
That's a lot of what I do. Like, there's no clear-cut reason why this is happening. Can you tell us why? And unfortunately, I don't do it in like a financial sector or anything more money lucrative. My talents are geared towards golf stats, so it's not something that's going to make me a very rich man. But I get to do a lot of cool stuff.
Emotionally rich.
Yeah.
We'll go there.
That's what's important, isn't it?
Today, yes. And look at you now. You're on Fringe coverage. I mean, what else do you want in life, right? Okay, so you're a Houston guy. Some big news came out of the tour here recently with the Chevron moving out of Carlton Woods and to Memorial Park. Talk to us about what you expect this change. What should we expect out of the golf course? Are you excited about it? Just kind of general reactions to the move.
Absolutely thrilled. I mean, generically you'd say that Chevron was in the Houston area, but the Woodlands is an hour away from downtown. It's really another city altogether, basically. I grew up, I went to Oak Ridge High School, which is right close to the Woodlands. So I'm intensely familiar with it. That's kind of where I grew up, not too far away from there. So being close to the city center, it's going to feel so much more like a Houston sporting event. I remember being there in person last year, and it was during the Rockets Warriors first round playoff series. Went to a couple Astros games, and there wasn't really any presence downtown. Like I remember seeing like one billboard, but like this is a huge week in sports in the city. We've got a major championship here. We've got Rockets playoffs. It's like the first week of the baseball season. Like, let's tie these things in. Like, why isn't Nelly in a box at the Rockets game? Like, why isn't Megan Kang throwing out the first pitch at the Stros game? Like, come on, let's get fired up for what we're doing.
This
here
is what I'm talking about.
It's going to feel so much bigger and so much more as part of a big city event, because logistically it was just difficult to get to Carlton Woods. First of all, it's not a walking golf course, so it's not going to be great for spectators anyway, but you've got to park and ride, like, get in on a shuttle, and just the infrastructure wise, it wasn't great. And also I think that weekend they were having like an Ironman in the Woodlands. And like, so traffic is already a disaster. Yeah. Like there were so many things that they were behind the eight ball in, and it has nothing to do with the golf course or, the setup or anything like that. I mean, I think there are things they could do differently, but this is just going to feel so much more like in the city, big sporting event, more fan presence, easier access. Like if you lived on the south side of Houston, like you're not going 2 hours. You got to really commit to get to that tournament. So I think it's going to bring in more casual sports fans and folks who are familiar with the golf course because of the Houston Open. It's an unbelievably positive thing. I hope it flourishes and stays in the city for years to come.
Well, and kudos to Chevron too. I mean, look, this tournament not long ago moved for the first time, and for that sponsor to keep its name on it, obviously with its Texas roots. Kudos to them for recognizing what wasn't necessarily working that well after a few years in the Woodlands, but obviously still checking the box they need, right, for being in Houston.
And look, I know fans miss the Dinosaur. I know they missed that golf course.
Sure.
I mean, it was a unique event and had a great run and great history. Give us a few years in Houston. Yeah. Let's build this thing up. Let's take these 2 years. I know we had a couple great tournaments, a couple great champions, especially Lily a couple years ago, but give us a few years, take stock of it a few years from now. I guarantee you're going to feel different about it than you do right now.
People didn't love Dinosaur 2 years into it either. Like, it has history because it was given time to develop history, right?
Yeah, character takes time to build.
For sure. Okay, we want to get you. We want to get you out of here on some kind of more fun, stats-driven questions. We're going to be all over the map. We're going to start golf. I have a feeling my co-host might take us outside the golf realm as well. With your NBA Jam in the background, with your ESPN time, he might ask some way outside the box questions. But first off, we got a bunch of people that are new to following the LPGA, following us now. Who are your favorite LPGA golfers to watch, for whatever reason, statistically or otherwise?
Wow, I think aesthetically, Nellie's swing, and then the fact that I have a jersey of her behind me that I got, and getting to know her and her caddy a little bit. Her caddy has the exact same birthday as me, which is fun. So we realized that, and then I did the Step Brothers quote, "Do we just become best friends?" I love watching her aesthetically. Just this golf swing is just awesome. Miyu Yamashita is fascinating to me. The fact that she's able to contend and win in major championships, and she was not 5'11" tall.
Yeah,
like, it's unbelievable. I was so interested in her coming over. I think it was Sahali where she first contended really in a major championship, and I thought, man, all her numbers are great. That ball's not going anywhere off the tee. How's she doing this? So she's a fascinating watch. I'd love to see Lydia Ko's evolution from prodigy to, it's hard to say this about someone who's still so young, but like a stateswoman of the game.
Right.
Where that win at the AIG a couple of years ago felt like a celebration of a career where you can keep playing. You're still one of the world's best. We don't want you to go, but it was like this. It's really hard to be a prodigy who sees through and actually might even exceed the expectations. You think like LeBron, Tiger, but Lydia is kind of in that class where she won as an amateur a couple of times. I think she won a tournament in New Zealand. She was like 12 or 13. But to see that kind of flourish and grow into the career that she's developed for herself has been really cool. And then selfishly, a lot of my favorites have come from personal relationships the last few years. I try to, every time I'm out, if I'm out at a tournament, I try to go meet up and say hello to Allison Corpuz. Just unbelievable, friendly person. Got to meet her dad last year. He's awesome. But because she's kind of analytically minded too. I think she did a huge business project at USC that was really numbers intensive. So she's an awesome person. I mean, everyone on that team I've really enjoyed spending time with. So that's probably my answer. It's all tied to those personal relationships.
When you look at LPGA stats and PGA stats, it's a very common thing that people want to compare the men's and women's game. And really across all sports, there's a lot of wrong assumptions out there. Certainly the men's game is very different now. There's a lot of courses they can't go play because of the developments in technology and how far they're hitting the ball. I'm curious, Justin, when you look at LPGA and LPGA stats side by side as deeply as you do, what might surprise fans of where men and women are a dead heat, or women are performing in a way that may not be intuitive? I'm really curious kind of what stands out to you in that front.
So the first thing people always point to is that the women don't hit it as far, obviously. But I think the more interesting thing to me is just how obscenely accurate the LPGA players are off the tee. I mean, it's not uncommon to see a dozen players hit 14 fairways in a round on the LPGA tour. I mean, it's preposterous how accurate they are with their tee shots. And so inherently a missed fairway becomes incredibly penalizing sometimes, where, if you are off with your driver, unless you're one of, your Lexi or Nelly or someone's able to get really steep in terms of the rough not being a super penalizing thing, that's really important. It's much more important than the men's game, where, sometimes just blasting it into the rough is the better shot. That often statistically is the case on the PGA Tour. So that's the first thing. I think what you said about comparing the men's and women's games, it would surprise some people. There are long stretches over the last 4 or 5 seasons where I would look at putt make percentage from 5 to 10 feet, and the LPGA was incrementally ahead of the men. Now, overall, over the body of it, the men are a little bit ahead of them, but they're really close, neck and neck, in terms of making putts. And that's really intriguing to me, because the agronomy isn't always perfect on the LPGA Tour. They kind of sometimes are dealing with, the courses are great. Don't get me wrong. It's more of a testament to the PGA Tour's quality of putting surfaces that they're on week in and week out. It's just a little bit more true. And I'd also say that when you get inside 100 yards, I mean, the ladies are pretty much as good as the men in terms of getting it tight. So when you remove the swing speed power element, it does create some different factors that make the sport a little bit different and interesting to follow for the women, where you can be really penalized for being inaccurate. And I think the perspective that, whatever scratch golfers is, I could compete on the LPGA Tour. Get the hell out of here. No,
Thank you.
Like, you just aren't, you're not, no.
Yeah. The word relatable is a dangerous word when people say, like, why, like, the reason I follow the women's game, I think Randy said it best last week, is they're hitting the ball from the same place I am most of the time. What they are doing with it is, there's nothing relatable about it, but to see them play the game in the same scale I play it, and so much better, that is why I follow the LPGA, because that I can relate to. Is like, I have that same club in my hand, but nothing else similar happens after that.
Yeah, no.
You got the same free throw line as the NBA players. You're not making.
Yeah. Check. That's a great analogy. Like, so I have the NBA League Pass, where you don't see commercials. You just see the in arena feed. And I'm a Rockets fan, and they have a guy come out and do the layup for $50, make a free throw. And the free throws are hysterical, right? Like, I think there's a little bit of that when you get on a greenside bunker, right? And see what, Say Young Kim does, or Lydia Ko or Brooke Henderson, and compare it to, us. A plus one or a scratch player, right? It's just, it's not the same thing. Not the same thing, boys.
All right, Tom, let's tee up Justin for the homework we gave him.
Oh, your favorite LPGA stats, if you got any.
So what I did is I structured 5 favorite LPGA stats going into this season. Okay. So I tried to make it, bounce around a little bit, different topics that I think are interesting. So number 1, this is about Nelly Cordes. She won 7 tournaments in 2024 and was winless in 2025. She is the only player in LPGA history to win 7 or more times in a season and go winless the following year.
Whoa.
So I think what's important to point out there is that for a lot of the season, her strokes gained total number was actually better than it was the season before. But there's so much circumstantial stuff that goes into winning a golf tournament. It's not just it's like what I was saying about the different elements of the numbers with the Solheim Cup. It's not just plug and play and that's who wins, right? I mean, we had kind of an unprecedented diversity of different winners on the LPGA Tour last season. What was it, 27 different to start the year, something crazy where we didn't have a repeat winner. I think that's one of the more intriguing storylines. Does the former world number 1, who was at the top of her game a couple of years ago, which version of her do we see in 2026?
And I think we can all agree that the 2024 Nelly is probably the actual Nelly, and 2025 was kind of an aberration. I don't think any of us are expecting her to go winless in 2026.
And I don't know that's an aberration either. Like, again, to Justin's point, like she's statistically for most of the year, she had a better strokes gain. Like she was playing great golf. Yeah, some of her, she would have like a really bad round and her Sundays were not great. Like she was not closing in that sense. But still, she finished second this year in, I guess, 2025 in strokes gained behind only one person who set the all-time record for scoring average in a season. Yeah. Right? Like we're doing something right here. Like again, Matt, we were talking about R&B earlier. We did an award show where we gave out R&B awards, and I gave Nelly the Mary J. Blige Just Fine award. Like, she's just fine. Back off. She's doing just fine, and I'm sure she would say there's things she wants to clean up. She's not playing bad golf. She's just not. You
think about some of the circumstances of some of the tournaments she won last season. I think it was that first tournament in Florida where it was her and Lydia, and basically they had like the champagne and roses out for Lydia getting into the Hall of Fame, and just Nelly went crazy coming down the stretch and ended up beating her in a playoff. Like Lydia hits one more shot of better quality. Like that doesn't happen, and the narrative's completely different. So it's sports, man. That's why we love it. Things happen that are unpredictable, and I think if she doesn't win multiple times this season, I'd be surprised.
All right, empty the clip, Justin. Anything else you got in there for stats?
Yes. Okay, so we all are waiting for Gino Titicun to break through in a major championship, but I don't think we put into proper context just how close she's been, how often. 5 top 5s in majors, but has not yet won. In the history of the LPGA Tour, only 12 players have more top 5s in majors without a win. All time, only 12. And if you narrow it down to since 2000, the only 2 players with more top 5s in majors without a win are Carlota Saganda and Nasata Oka. And this is just the last couple of years. So she's there over and over again. Obviously, all the history she made last season, best scoring average of all time. She's the first player to lead in birdie average and bogey avoidance in a decade. All the great things she's done. It's only a matter of time. We're just waiting for that breakthrough.
All she needs is Grace Kim to sit. She just needs Grace Kim to not go nuts. That's all she needed last year. Right?
Yeah, or else, well, like I said, circumstances and
for sure
things happen. It's all completely different.
What's next?
All right, to the Grace Kim point, 4 first-time major winners last season. Since the beginning of the 2020 season, there have been 29 LPGA majors played. 20 of them were first-time major winners, about 69%. On the men's side in that span, that number is 48%. So I think that speaks to, at the very top, there's so much, not randomness isn't the right word, but there's so much competition at the very top when you get in these championships. I mean, I think in one hand, it might make it a little harder from a narrative standpoint. Like Rory wins the Grand Slam. Scotty is dominant. Like those are really easy storylines for casual fans to follow. But I think if you dive in, like the excitement on a Sunday and major championships for the LPGA is pretty unprecedented. It's really great.
For sure. I mean, just look at last year's Chevron with a 5-player playoff. I mean, not most exactly
players in the playoff in a major in LPGA.
Maybe not the best playoff, well played playoff I've ever seen, but to your point, like so dynamic, and most of which were probably going to be first time winners. Okay, what do we got left?
All right, we're looking at breakthrough players maybe early in this season. I went through and looked at which players are the most improved second halves on the LPGA seasons in terms of strokes gained total. This isn't the top 3, but the 3 names that stood out most to me on that list: Se-Young Kim, who of course got the win at the BMW late in the year; Grace Kim, and Charlie Hull. Those were three names that were some of the most improved on the LPGA Tour in the second half compared to the first half. It would be great to see Charlie break through and win a major, some more prolonged success. She's one of the great characters we have on tour. But those were the three names I saw that were probably most interesting in terms of most improved from the first half to the second half of the season.
The guests are going to be the listeners are going to be tired of hearing it. Charlie's my favorite. I need it, man. I need it.
Ripping darts or no darts, more Charlie is good.
Yes.
Amen.
All right, and here's my favorite, and you'll know why after I read it. From 2011 through 2021, the United States had a -7 point differential in foursomes in the Solheim Cup, the alternate shot format. -7. Over the last two, it's +6, 11-5. The last two, where 21st Group was in the mix and helping out. So obviously, toot our own horn, yes. So the strategy has been great, but largely it's the reason why the Solheim Cup kind of narrative has changed the last couple of years. So even if I'm not over there helping Captain Stanford, which I definitely hope I will be, can they continue that trend? That's going to be the thing that's the question. Can Europe respond with better alternate shot play? Because the Americans have dominated the last two.
The Justin Ray effect is real, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sure it's going to impact this podcast numbers, Justin. Everywhere you go, everything you touch is gold is what I'm hearing.
You're too kind.
I'm going to call you for the Netherlands.
I'm going to record that and tell that to my wife.
Yeah,
Everything
you
I
can just
touch
tell him
turns
someone
to
more
gold.
important said it other than some random podcast host. Justin, this was a blast, man. We could, I know we could do this forever. Want to be sensitive to your time. I am going to have Tom fire one more at you. Just Tom, whatever sports take you want to go. If you have the stats guru in front of you, where do you want to go?
I wanted to know your favorite non-golf analytics fad. I mean, the ones that came to my mind, you have Dan Campbell going for it on fourth down constantly, or Mike D'Antoni's 7 seconds or less offense. My favorite being Joe Madden batting a pitcher in the 8-hole when he was the Cubs manager. Is there anything that you see, you come across and go, yes, I bet the stats back this up, and I love it?
That's a great question. I think the most fascinating one to me is how advanced camera technology in baseball has helped pitchers identify, like using a four-seam fastball more, or, hey, you've got underrated value in your 12-6 curveball, like that kind of like level of detail that teams are able to use with their pitching scouting and kind of finding value, like unearthing gems by using kind of basically TrackMan data, but for baseball. I think that's really interesting. The things that have changed, like the gameplay and landscape, like the going for it on fourth down or the 7 seconds or less, like there's arguments, like people want the good old days sometimes, right? Like, why are they going for it all the time on fourth down? I think one of the most fascinating things this year has been the change in the kickoff rule in the NFL, where now you really have to strategically kick. You can't just bomb it into the back of the end zone like they did for 50 years. Like, you've got to put it in a spot where that 15 yards is super important, especially at the end of the game, where if you got kickers making 60-yard field goals, you officially only need to gain 15, 20 yards to put yourself in scoring position. So I don't have a perfect answer to that, but I think that my favorite analytical trend would probably be the way pitchers are able to improve and find value in what they do. Like Yusei Kikuchi is a great example of that. He got traded to my team, the Astros, a couple seasons ago, and they found he was underthrowing a couple different pitches. He has a great second half. He goes out and gets a huge contract from the Angels. So I think that's a really cool thing that they're able to do with technology and analytics.
I'm going to export my game changer stats for my son's little league team, and I'm going to ask you to make my lineups moving forward.
Perfect.
It's tough stuff, man.
I'll contact you with a fee.
Yeah, make it high, would you?
I'll pay it. It's the most stressful part of my life, making little league lineups.
Justin, let's get you out of here on this. Who's winning at Memorial Park? Let's start the major season right. Who you got?
Man, that's great. That's a great question. I haven't even dove into that yet, so I'll say Nelly Korda.
Good place to start. I like it.
Why not?
Man, let's put her name back in the. It's only going to be good for golf to have her start winning early, especially if it's a major. Justin Ray, you are the man. Thank you so much for making time for us, being so generous with your time and bringing the heat with those stats. I loved those first time major winner stats. Would love to have you back sometime, but man, thank you so much for carving out time today. Really appreciate you.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it, guys. Thanks for having me.